everybody, it's Chris Eads, and online it's Wootini here with another Gay Gamer video podcast. This week I did go back to the movies and I saw The Nun II, which normally I would not have seen, but there's nothing else out, and I haven't gone to the movies in like 3 weeks, so I kind of want to get my money's worth from my $25 a month, so I need to see movies. So I went to see The Nun II, and it was actually better than the first one. I didn't care for the first one. And the second one was actually a little bit better, even though it focuses more on Sister Irene. And I don't know why Tessa Farmiga is getting work like this, because she has like no presence. So I just feel like I don't buy her as a demon hunter. But whatever. It's the same thing. It's a bunch of thinly drawn characters being scared by, things and loud noises to make you jump out of your seat and that sort of thing. The story structure is kind of a mess. It keeps cutting back and forth, and it's just not very involving. It doesn't really build tension because it keeps cutting away to other things, and it's like, come on, man. But it is slightly better than the first because it kind of ratchets up like the supernatural craziness. And there is in fact one part which I won't say anything about. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who does want to see the movie. It's a really great shock moment that had me going, what the? And I was like, this just went up in rating for me because that actually made this worth watching. It gets a little silly though later, but for that moment I was like, okay, score. So it's not necessarily scary. I mean, I jumped a few times because the noises are real loud, and I saw it in the Dolby Theater, so my seat jolted every time there was a loud noise. So that helped, but and it's not great, but it's better than the first. So. And then as for games, as I mentioned last episode, I was this close to the end of Sable. And so I did actually finish Sable, obviously. It only took me another day. It didn't even take me a day. It took me like maybe an hour. But I had almost all of the trophies. And I didn't want to finish the story and get that trophy because I wanted to make sure I had the other ones, and there were only a couple missing, and I managed to get jump the bike and get air for like 5 seconds. I was concerned about that one because that takes skill, but I pulled it off eventually, so it was fine. And then the other one was getting all of the chums for the Chum Queen. Every time you bring her another batch, she ups your stamina meter, and thankfully, there's apparently 165 chums in the game, which is a lot, but you only need to find 100 to complete the Queen's quest. You can go back and get more later if you want, but I was good with the 100. It got me the trophy, and then I was basically done. And the only trophies I was missing was the one for finishing the game story, and then the platinum for getting all of the other trophies. So as soon as I finished the game, I got that one, and then I got the platinum, and I platinumed one more game, which I think is like 4 or 5 total. But overall, I did like the game. It's beautiful. It's like being in a Mobius illustration. I love that. It's exactly what I wanted. And then the actual gameplay, it's funny because like, if I have a complaint other than the occasional bug, it's that the gameplay is basically just exploring and finding things and collecting things and doing fetch quests and whatnot. And there's really no like thought necessary. It doesn't bother me so much because exploring a game world is one of my favorite things to do in a video game. So I was perfectly fine with exploring the world and discovering new things and finding this, that, and the other thing. But I did wish that there was a little more to it sometimes. Like the most thought you have to put into is getting from point A to point B and being like, okay, how do I get up there? It's like, well, I can climb here, and then I can go over here, and then I can climb this, and then I can go over here, and then I can get there. You know, that's about the only thought you really have to put into it. Because there was this one part where you go to this big building and there's this huge clockwork solar system sculpture thing, and you're meant to rearrange the pieces in a particular configuration. And the clue didn't really give me much to go on, and so I was like, ugh, like that's not, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Like, there wasn't a puzzle to solve necessarily. So I said, well, let me just go to the control panels and just see which pieces I'm manipulating, and then maybe that'll click in my head and I'll figure out what I'm supposed to do. So I take the first control panel and I start moving the pieces around, and like on the second or third move, a light came on, and I said, oh, that is probably good. And I went to the other control panels and turned them until the light came on each of those. And then once the light was on each one, that was it, solved. And I was like, well, that's not a puzzle at all. So that was disappointing, because that was the one where I was like, ooh, a puzzle. Like, I'll have to figure something out. But you didn't. So I would have liked a little more of that sort of thing, like puzzles and stuff. But overall, as an experience, it was great, and I very much enjoyed it. And then as soon as I finished that, I decided to go and play some No Man's Sky, because I wanted to check out the new update and this new race of robots, the autophage. Unfortunately, when looking up how to start the autophage quest, you had to have done a couple of other things first. One, you had to have finished the Purge quest line, which I did years ago when I first got the game. But you also had to you have to own a settlement, and you had to have finished a particular quest with the Sentinels, which I think was part of one of the previous updates, like when they added settlements and whatever. So fine, I found this world, and it's a beautiful paradise planet, and there was a settlement on it, so I took over that settlement, and that was kind of tedious because you have to build up the settlement, and you have to find all the elements needed to create buildings and do whatever you got to do, and that was a little tedious, but at the same time I'm exploring other planets and it's fine, and then I just would warp back with the teleporter and take care of the next step. Then eventually it did start the Trace of Metal quest, which involved when your settlement gets noticed by the Sentinels, they attack, which sucked because everything online was like, oh, it's not that bad. It's just a few Sentinels and it took them out easy. Except for the fact that the drones were fine, but there was a walker, and the walker killed me. And then I was like, fuck, because I'm not good at combat. I never did combat, so I've never boosted my shield. I've never gotten better weapons for my multi-tool. I never bothered because I was an explorer, not a fighter. So the second time I managed to beat it, and that was great. Then I go and do this whole quest where there's this Sentinel drone that you basically make new for yourself, so it's not connected to the Sentinels, it's yours. And excuse me. And it leads you on this quest, and it involves a whole lot of nonsense. And unfortunately, it also involved some more fighting of Sentinels and Sentinel walkers, which sucks, and I kept dying, which was annoying. But eventually, by the skin of my teeth, I did manage to defeat the final part of the quest. I did manage to defeat the Sentinel walker, and after I blew that up, then it was done, and I finished the quest line, and I said, great, now all I have to do is find a desiccated world, and a desiccated system, so that I can go and find the autophage will contact me. But I went to a system and nothing happened. So I found another system, still no contact. And I was super annoyed, and I started Googling around, and I think I've done, you can't just start doing it. You have to have completed other previous things, which I thought I had, but I'm wondering because I did the Atlas quest and I got the Remembrance, but I could never make the Remembrance because you needed the Heart of the Sun to make the Remembrance, but I don't have the recipe for Heart of the Sun. And in fact, looking in my inventory, I'm missing a few recipes that look like they were Atlas stones. And I'm like, how did I skip Atlas stones? Like, how did the game let me skip those? So I'm super frustrated. I'm Googling around, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do to make this quest activate. You have to have reached these certain things so that you can, then it'll start this quest. And I'm wondering if I needed to have all of those Atlas stones in order to start this quest. I don't know. Because No Man's Sky has become so overly complicated that you can't just Google and find a fact that's like, here's the mission and here's how you do it. Because there's so many different little pieces over the years that have been added. And if I didn't make the remembrance and have it on my person, then I can't do the new autophage quest. I don't know. Is that the requirement? I don't know. There's no way of knowing. It's so frustrating. So I got really, really mad and I had to put it down. Then the next day I was like, well, maybe I can like go find another Atlas station and get this, maybe those will give me the stones that I don't already have. And then once I collect them all, then I can make them and then I can do the autophage quest. But after like warping like 7 or 8, 9 times and still not finding an Atlas station, I was like, you know what? No, I need to take a step back and not play this. Because it's so frustrating that I cannot enjoy the new DLC. Because they have had DLC in the past. I've said this before. They've had DLC where it's like, oh, you can make vehicles. It's like, I don't care about vehicles. You know? And they're like, you can do this, that, and the other. You can fight space combat pirates now. It's like, I don't want to do that. But here, I would love to meet a race of robot aliens and learn their language and learn what they are. And that, to me, because I love playing the exploring part. And I'm just like, ugh, why won't it let me play that? And it's so frustrating. So I had to put it down because I didn't want to rage quit No Man's Sky. But there doesn't seem to be any way for me to do this new DLC. It's just not going to happen. So I said, F it, and I will just take a step back. And I'll go back later at some point and just, you know, do some more exploring and see what there is to see. Because that's what I like to do in No Man's Sky. And I just will pretend that there isn't a race of robots. Even though the robots have shown up in my game because there was a settler dispute and one of the settlers fighting with another settler was one of the robots. And I'm like, so what the hell? Ugh, anyway. I put No Man's Sky aside and decided that to tide me over until next month when Spider-Man 2 comes out, I decided that I would download Sea of Stars on my Switch and give that a try. Because it's an indie RPG and I loved the demo, as you might recall from the episode where I talked about the demo. And I said I could use some old school pixel turn-based RPG goodness. So come back next episode when I won't be complaining. I should be enjoying Sea of Stars. So come back next episode and find out if that's true. Spoiler alert, I think it'll be true. Bye!